The following program is brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole.
It's Zach Edey with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boilers in the Stands post-game show. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Joe Jackson. Craig Bowers is underneath, talking with Matt Painter, Mason Gillis, Lance Jones, and Zack Edey here on Senior Day. The celebrations just got finished. Plenty of fans still waiting for Zack Edey to come back out one last time here at Mackey Arena and greet the fans. Purdue wins. They go undefeated at home at Mackey Arena. I believe the last time that the Purdue Boilermakers went undefeated at home at Mackey was the year they got to the Elite Eight and were one bucket away from making it to a Final Four. So they won a Big Ten regular season championship that year. They went undefeated at home and just fell short of the Final Four. So we'll have to wait and see if this team can cross the threshold in March. Joe, is a pretty chippy game here today. Not much on the line for Purdue other than that undefeated record, and Lance Jones did say that was important to them. So they were playing for something, despite what a lot of fans probably would have preferred them to just call it at halftime, especially after seeing Zack Edey and Braden Smith go down on the floor grabbing their ankle area, and Braden even having to go back to the locker room for a short period of time. But, you know, it got chippy in the second half as well. Tyler Wall and Zack Edey trading some fisticuffs, not really fisticuffs, but some elbows, trading some elbows and things of that nature. So Wisconsin wasn't backing down, but Purdue, was also ready to take it to the fight. So, Joe, your instant reaction here to today's win in the season in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's senior day. This is obviously one of the most important classes it's ended up being in Purdue's probably history, with Edey, and he has a dominant performance in his last game in Mackey Arena. Gillis knocks down a couple threes. You see Morton come up with a steal late, and then Lance Jones, he definitely wanted to have a big game. You could tell right away, and he ended up 13 points, and then also you can't forget about Barrett and Martin off the bench too. Just giving them playing time. It was cool to be able to see them, and then that's just I think where I want to start is just how much fun it's been watching not only this team this season, but just this graduating class in general. Obviously, Edey is what he is. We know, Gillis is the ultimate glue guy, and Morton can come in and give you good defense. And Lance Jones has been electric this year. And I've always just, anytime Carson Barrett has been in the game, he's made some highlights. Chase Martin obviously continuing with like his dad's legacy. It's just so cool to see what they've been able to do. And I'm going to miss him. Like it was, it's that bittersweet moment of like, it's awesome that we've been able to see them develop as people, as basketball players, and there's still plenty more to do this season for them. But at the same time, this was the last time we'll see any of them play in Mackey Arena. And so just wanting to take it all in, understand that this isn't normal. Like Zack Edey, especially, that like witnessing him do what he does is not normal. I'm glad to see Purdue get the win. It was a very chippy game, like you said. It felt like at times Purdue was just doing what was needed. It wasn't an A+ game from Purdue, and it wasn't even close. But at the same time, second half especially, you could tell Zack Edey wasn't going to lose this game. You really turned up the aggression, the intensity towards really the last 10 minutes of that second half, where Wisconsin wanted to push it close, wanted to try to get the lead, and Purdue never fully gave in. Zack Edey is a big part of that, but also the other guys as well. So just good to see them get a W on their senior night.
Yeah, honestly, Wisconsin's kind of lucky that Purdue's got something to lose, because there was a couple guys. Painter said it in his speech, while he was talking to the seniors. He was like, Mason Gillis was begging to get a technical foul during the game because things were getting so chippy. But I thought Zach was ready to throw down a couple times. Tyler Wall and him, and I've got a lot of respect for Tyler Wall's game. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the country. Watching him and the way he gets his points, I think most people would think, if you just watched him one time, you'd be like, this is lucky. This is, he doesn't have much skill, but he gets the job done. I actually do have a lot of respect for his game. But there was borderline dirtiness going on today too. So I don't have a lot of respect for that aspect of it. And Zack Edey was definitely taking exception at times. And as I said, at one point, I think Zach had enough with about 3 minutes left, and Braden just kind of looked at him and was like, let it go, because they've got bigger fish to fry. And had they not had bigger fish to fry, there might have been fists a flying, honestly, because some of it was a little out of pocket. And when you're talking about what's going to be the 2-time National Player of the Year, hitting the deck a few times, and how many times were there hook and holds, and Purdue knows why. The reason they have that, that rule is because of Isaac Haas, right? And so, you're going into the tournament there, this is one of the top teams in the country, and you've got, Zack Edey, taking some hits that he probably shouldn't take. And the refs let this game get out of control. They did not get this game under control at any moment and let that cheapness continue throughout the game. And honestly, it was on them in a lot of ways, the way it was unfolding. We typically on this show do not go after the refs as much. We could talk about how Zack Edey gets fouled every time down the court. I think that goes without saying. But this was a little beyond reproach, even because we were here at the stadium. But on the call, Robbie Hummel even said, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah.
Talking about the officiating. It's the truth. It was over the line today, especially when you're considering, what's ahead here for the Big Ten, and for everybody. So, that concerns me going into next week for the Big Ten tournament. Purdue's got bigger fish to fry even beyond the Big Ten tournament. And they talked about it in the press conference. Zach said, anytime you have an opportunity to win a championship, you want to win one. So they're going to go for it for the Big Ten tournament championship back-to-back again this year. And so, but the way these other teams are playing them, and we all understand what's at stake for March. You know, we talked about it on the last show we did with Bobby Buckets and the previous post-game show. I will not be mad at Matt Painter if he chooses to play Caleb First some extra minutes, chooses to play Miles Colvin like he did today some extra minutes, choosing to play some guys that may not get as much time in the rotation when the money on the table time starts for the NCAA tournament. That's just the way I look at it. Doesn't mean you can't still try to win and compete, but I do think that there needs to be a consideration for rotational minutes and when another team is getting as trying to muddy it up as much as Wisconsin did today. I think some things do have to be taken into consideration because other teams don't have as much on the line as Purdue does going into March.
Yeah, and I think you saw today especially. Like, Wisconsin is a team that is just fighting for any little thing. They are 3-8 in their last 11 games. They have nothing going for them at all, and they tried their best to take Purdue out of their game. And so, me and Kraig both pointed it out. Kind of just sitting here is like, even just dead balls and stuff. You'd always see, whether it be Wall, Crowell, all of them. Not like shoulder check a player, but they as they walk by, just throw a shoulder into an Edey or whoever. And Purdue eventually, retaliated a little bit on that too. I'm not saying Purdue is perfect, but like there's just all this little stuff where Wisconsin was just trying to be as physical as possible and just try to take Purdue out of their game. This is a game where just like if Purdue had more to play for, it would have been really interesting to see what happened. But Purdue knew they just had to do what they had to do to get a win, solely just for Edey, for the senior class, for the home court thing. Like there's just a lot of little stuff, and Wisconsin was trying to. Big Ten tournament might happen too, but I think it just really happened, especially today, because Wisconsin's just kind of, been a dead man walking almost for a month now.
Well, right. I mean, since the last time Purdue beat them, Wisconsin was
sixth in the country.
Right, they were number 6 in the country, and since then they've been on a bit of a tailspin. And right out the gate on the tip-off, you had Crowell kind of chirping at Zack Edey on the tip. Then they go down on the very first possession, and there's a tie-up on a jump ball, and it was already chippy, literally on the first possession, first tip. David Dillman talks about the moment in the second half where Wall smacked the ball out of Edey's hands during a dead ball, and David thought someone surely would have picked up a tech, and Zach. So at that point, Tyler Wall, like they, got frisky, and so there was that moment of tension, and then Tyler tried to break the tension by like smacking him on the chest, like, "Oh, okay, we're done." And Zach just kind of smirked it off, like, "Hey, man, don't mess with me." And I'll agree with David Jenkins here, not the David Jenkins, although we're gonna effort to bring David on a little more here in this postseason, but our David Jenkins here in the chat, he says that won't back down factor is what is different about this squad, and I agree. While we're all on pins and needles holding our breath because we understand we've got bigger fish to fry going forward, they took the fight right back to them, and whether we all wanted to call it at halftime or not, Purdue was playing for keeps. And so credit to Purdue. They kept their composure. Nobody picked up a tech, and they hit some big buckets. Mason Gillis continues to hit dagger threes in the second half when you need him the most. Braden Smith was off today, but there were times where he hit the big three to push it back to either 7 or 9. I think it was to push it back to 7.
Yeah.
That was a huge three, on a rebound and a loose kind of a broken play. And then Zack Edey, he takes the physicality, he absorbs the physicality, and he keeps coming at you, really fighting for rebounds, nice hands, getting the ball back out after the rebound or putting it right back up. Couple and ones, couple times where he goes to the free throw line. These guys are ready to fight. And I'm excited for the tournaments here to come because these guys have played with a chip on their shoulder, even though they're one of the top teams in the country and had been number 1 in the country for quite some time. They do play with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Braden Smith, kind of letting the refs know at one point, Mason Gillis on an inbounds was, getting, pretty chirpy with the ref about, something that, he disagreed with. So these guys are kind of demanding their respect, and they're gonna get it from you through their play. So I agree with this won't back down factor. That is, a little different. Last year, as we've mentioned and highlighted it here a few times on these post-game shows, they backed their way into tournament time, losing 4 of their last 6 games. This year, no such case. They lose to Ohio State, and everybody's a little nervous at that time. Well, they won out the rest of the way. That was our question. Is this going to be like a repeat of last year where, teams are figuring them out or they're getting tired? No. Last 5 games, everybody's picked it up. Fletcher Loyer is, back to doing his thing, playing with a lot of confidence. Even Lance Jones in the first half really was the spark plug for this team offensively. So we'll get into all that. But there's no question. I mean, after a game like today, you've got to say the highlight of this game was the chippiness and borderline dirtiness that was going on, and something Purdue's going to have to play through in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and the Big Ten tournament. Maybe not as much like the dirtiness aspect, but like teams, we've all lived through, right? As Boiler fans, like teams are just going to try to be crazy physical, especially down low with Edey, and take him out take him out of the game as much as possible. And this Wisconsin is for as bad as they've been, they are still a solid team in some aspects. Like Purdue's ability to weather the storm, handle all that, and win this. I know the final score was 8 points, but they were up 16 with 2 minutes left. And then, Wisconsin just, a couple garbage time buckets, whatever. Purdue not only weathered the storm, but they regained absolute control of this game in that second half. This was Wisconsin cut it. I believe Wisconsin cut it to 3 in the second half at one point, if I'm not mistaken. I think I could find it right here.
They did.
Yep. And so what's Purdue not only, Wisconsin has all the momentum. They're playing with the advantage, and Purdue's just like, all right, no, we're going to win. We're the better team. We're way better than you, and we're going to show it. They get it out to 16 points with 2 minutes left, and then carry on from there. Just a really good effort across the board, really, from a lot of the rotational guys, and we'll get into more of them as we get into the show. But just a good. I'm just glad that they got a win. As of right now, it seems like Smith and Edey are perfectly fine. Nobody got hurt, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah, and then I think the other aspect that I'd kind of been monitoring over the last handful of games was I wanted to see Purdue throw the first punch. It seemed like they had been taking the first punch, absorbing it, winning the war of attrition, and ultimately winning these last few games. But it seemed like the other team was going out on that initial run. It's a game of runs. That's what basketball is all about, whether it's high school, college, or pro level. But today Purdue came out and threw the first punch, as far as, offensively in the score. And so I liked seeing that. That was probably one of my only boxes I wanted to see checked here before we got into the tournament. I'll still continue to monitor that in the Big Ten tournament because I just think they're playing such well-rounded basketball right now. They really understand their roles, and it's somewhat of a well-oiled machine, and they have so many different options offensively, and you can only cut off so much of it. That's why Mason Gillis seems to always come up with these big shots where he's wide open and knocks them down, or Fletcher Loyer at times, because you've got to worry about Zack Edey first and foremost. Then you've got Braden Smith, obviously. So, it's fun watching this because, I think for Purdue fans, when they talk about like, how do you get to the Final Four? Well, everybody's just going to point to Carson Edwards because that's the closest Purdue has came in our lifetime. But what Carson Edwards did that March is rarefied air, even for March. I know there's always, that one guy that seems to do it every year, but that's not something that is sustainable, and something that you can depend on. I mean, even if people remember, Carson was on a bit of a cold streak leading up to the NCAA tournament. I can rewind you guys back to that year, and when they went to IU, he was like 0 of 18 or something in a game where Matt Harms tipped it in to win it. He couldn't buy a bucket that game, and that was at the back end of the season. But he caught fire, and so did Ryan Klein, and we all understand what happened with that story. But what Purdue does offensively, when you talk about offensive efficiency, and they've been one of the most offensive efficient teams statistically the last few years. But what they're doing this year, playing inside and out, and then talking about one of the top teams shooting threes in the country all season long, and from a bevy of different, levels, whether it's the guards, or the forwards. It's not just coming from the wings. It's coming from Mason. Caleb first knocked one down in the corner. He hasn't taken very many, but he's fully capable of making that shot. So, from my standpoint, and seeing what you can expect, you know what I mean? Like Carson Edwards, that's amazing. But can you expect that every game where he's just going to rain fire from, 6 feet off the 3-point line? They don't run those plays. Braden or Fletcher or Lance Jones can get hot at any time, but what they do offensively, I think they've become such a well-oiled machine with this that I do think it is very dependable because this year, as opposed to last year, they're hitting their threes with more consistency. You know what you're going to get from Zack Edey. Now it's about the rest of the guys to help him out.
And we're seeing it. Braden Smith almost has a triple-double. Fletch is 5 for 5 from 3. Lance Jones is the wildest 4 for 7 I've ever seen in my life, I think. Gillis knocks down 2 threes. Purdue shot 9 for 18 as a team from 3. Like, you're maybe not everybody, right, especially in the tournament, right? Not everybody's going to hit on the exact same game. We know what we're going to get from Edey. That's just, he's going to be Zack Edey. The formula has been Zack Edey being on, Braden Smith being at least good, and at least one other perimeter player stepping up, whether it's Lance Jones, Fletch, Heidi, even Gillis to an extent if he's knocking down threes. Like Purdue, they need Edey, and the Edey and Smith are what pushes this team, but the other guys are just what allows this team to become not only great but like fantastic, one of the best teams in the country. And in March, obviously I would love for everybody to play their best games every single game, but realistically that's not going to happen. You need Smith, Edey, plus at least one other, and yep. Purdue has the depth, or maybe not the depth is the right word, but they have multiple guys that I trust that can do it on any given night.
Yeah, they have a ton of options, and Derek Mulligan and Chez says Carson still has the record for made threes in a tourney in 4 games. He has the most made threes in a single tourney, and he didn't even get to the Final Four. Imagine how much that record would have been extended had they gotten, to the Final Four that year, which I believe was in Minnesota. I'm pretty sure it was. But Braden does have that, Carson in him as far as just like, hey, I'll ISO and I can make the shot against my guy. He's going to do mid-range. He's going to hit his threes. He's going to, follow the pick and roll and take that layup. He makes it look so easy, just the way he manipulates that pick and roll. It's a lot of fun to watch. But, like I said, he's going to do it a different way than Carson as far as the explosiveness, lightning in a bottle type of scoring that Carson did it. But Braden has that it, if that's what we're trying to talk about here. He's just doing it in such a different way where he's also helping out the rest of his team too. Like you said, he almost ended with a triple-double here again today. I mean, my gosh, the way he gets rebounds. I know we talk about his assists. I know we talk about his scoring, but he's got such long arms, and the way he pulls down rebounds at times, he's very effective from the guard position, getting on the glass.
I mean, it's second most rebounds out of anybody on Purdue today. Let's see. He was the 3rd leading rebounder in general in this game, like both sides. And some of it obviously is team as well. That means everybody else has to be boxing out pretty well, but at the same time, he can just kind of fly up, has a good nose for the ball. I think he just understands where the ball for the most part is going to go. And I think Purdue in general, right? They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They're all very good of just understanding, okay, long shot, probably rebounds are probably going to go opposite side, know where to go on close shots. And Braden's absolutely a part of that. And tennis, Braden did not shoot the ball well, and everything was short after he landed on the ref's foot. It was out on the ref's foot, right? We have confirmation, I think, of that.
I didn't see it until afterwards. And then at the halftime, some of the guys from ISC Purdue were showing me their pictures. So I didn't realize that that's how it had happened. I was looking at the other end of the court, and then all of a sudden they stopped play, and then my heart sank.
Yeah.
Watching Braden get carried off like that was terrifying. I mean, if the Zack Edey on the floor wasn't terrifying enough that he walked it off, they didn't even take him off the court. And I was like, maybe we should take him off the court. Like, let him take a look at him for a second. And then, but he was fine. Credit to him. He toughed it out. Painter's one of those guys that's not gonna, he's, gonna let you play as tough as you want to play. He respects that part of it. And then Braden, same thing. It was like, oh man, that was terrifying. David Dillman's on fire in the chat today. He was saying there was the one play where Fletch had a contested three, but saw potential for a better three, kicked it to the right. And it was huge that they both recognized it, and Braden knocked down the three. That was the moment where Wisconsin was really going on a run in the second half. They got a rebound, kick out, Fletch. You think he's going to take it? Nope. Kick over to Braden, who had just missed the shot, and he knocks down the three. And, that's that keep shooting kind of mentality. Braden was a little off today. He was short on a lot of his shots. But he made that one and making life difficult on Wisconsin and was able to extend the lead and keep this game at bay. So, let's take a little time out and then we'll move into the next segment of our show. I'm sure Kraig's going to be popping out here at any minute. I know that he talked to the players a while ago, so Painter must have gone a little long. So we'll hear what Kraig has to say from Matt Painter's press conference here momentarily. But before we do, we want to give a shout out to our guys over at Autograph.
Yeah, Autograph. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks at this point. Just a really cool sports app where you can go on, you log, it's all free. You just log on, and now all your Purdue content is going to be in one specific page. That's probably like one of my favorite parts of it. Is just everything is right there. It's very easy. Our podcasts are on there. You have different articles from across your different Purdue sources. Also other colleges as well, and then expansion potentially to pro teams. It's just a really cool app. It's free. Use code BITS to sign up. They are now, I believe, on Android. I think we said that last episode that they are now on the Android app or Google's Play Store or whatever it is as well. So you can now go on there, use code BITS. It's completely free. And then on top of just being a cool app that obviously puts everything in one specific spot for you, they're rewarding you for being a fan. So there is, within the app too, the more you interact with articles, with podcasts, with posts and each other and stuff on there, there's a leaderboard. You can see like kind of the rankings there, potential rewards eventually from there. And then also they're doing like giveaways. So there was, I believe, 3 ticket packages that were for today's Wisconsin game. I looked, the cheapest ticket just on like SeatGeek or whatever was $300. They were doing ticket packages for $16 a piece. They're also doing that for the Big Ten semifinals. So a couple ticket packages for the Big Ten semifinal thing. All you got to do, log in, use the code BITS. It's all completely free. Just check it out, and then you can be entered. And so, yeah, we just appreciate them. Hit my mic. Appreciate them working with us. It is a cool app. There's going to be a QR code that we're going to throw up. Use that to be able to log in and, enjoy your sports content.
Yeah, there's the QR code for those of you that are watching here on YouTube or Twitter, or Facebook, wherever you're watching it. But for those of you that are listening on the audio end of things, we're showing a QR code right now that makes it easy to download the app. And once you get in, it's free. Like Joe said, use the promo code BITS, as in Boilers in the Stands. So use BITS. That's how they'll know that you got it from us. And, that helps us out, and it'll help you out getting into all your Purdue content needs. We appreciate the Autograph guys for jumping on board here with us as the season's winding down. Let's get into the next phase of the show here. Talk a little bit about the team stats. I know that Wisconsin, one of the main stats that I was looking at was Wisconsin was ice cold from 3 today. I don't know. What did they finish with, Joe?
They were 5 for 24 from 3, which is 20%, and that includes they made one right at the end.
Yeah, it ice cold. You're not going to find too many teams shooting that cold from 3. They just couldn't find it. A lot of them were taken by bigs, big men though. Zach, obviously is going to give them a little bit of space, and a few times he's like, all right, let them have it. You know what I mean? It's almost a lost possession for them because they're like, well, I'm this open and I can make this shot, but is it their best shot? Maybe they probably would have liked to have a few of those back. So, you know, it's hard to say, but, you know, it's nice to see that, you know, Purdue was able to take advantage of that. You know, I'm sure Wisconsin will shoot better. I mean, Connor Esigian, what did he finish with today? Because he was almost like, I don't remember like really saying his name more than a couple of times the whole game.
He only played like 1 minute.
Right. And then the other, and then who came into the game that was maybe
John Blackwell.
What's that?
John Blackwell's, I'm assuming who you're going to talk about.
No. The other guy that might not have played today, and then they had him in the starting lineup.
Oh, Max Klesmit.
Yeah, and he didn't do too much today either. So, you know, they were playing kind of shorthanded here today, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Esigian's been out of the rotation for a large part of the year. And then, yeah, I don't know what was up with Klesmit. I looked and he wasn't supposed to start, and then he was. So, I mean, he played 17 minutes. I assume there's some sort of injury or whatever going on there. But then, you know, they got big contributions from the freshman John Blackwell, who had 18 points. This was just a game where it was Wisconsin had 3 dudes who could score. It was AJ Storr, who was not really that efficient, Tyler Wall, who was great, and John Blackwell, who was great. Other than that, like, nobody else really got anything going at all against Purdue. And then, I mean, Klesmit had 2 fouls on the game. But I think in the first half for sure, he got in foul trouble. And then John Blackwell was just playing so well. They kind of stuck with him. But outside of those top 3, Wisconsin just didn't have anybody really that could score today. Chucky was, I believe, 0 for. No, he was 1 for 7, 0 for 4 from 3. Marcus Ilver off the bench, 1 for 5 from 3. He was that big that Edey just kind of kept shooting. And Ilver can knock him down, but just wasn't there today. And Purdue's fortunate in that regard, but also Wisconsin just has not shot the ball well lately.
Yeah, Blackwell, to your point, you know, and David's bringing it up as well. You know, he was really the guy keeping them in this, you know, for a large portion of the game, and especially in the second half, you know, running down loose balls and making plays. He got called for that charge, you know, and it was interesting to watch that because you were kind of anticipating the Fletcher Loyer flop, you know, that he's so good at throwing and getting the call on a lot of times. But he stood his ground, and then they gave him the charge anyway. So I wonder, had he like done the flop, if they would have called it the other way. But since he didn't, because during the timeout after that charge, you know, Wisconsin's coaches were really trying to get an understanding of why they called it. And the refs were really emphasizing how, you know, Blackwell was, you know, extending his forearm to try to create his position in the post. And he had done that a few times in the game prior to that. So I think there was a little bit of an anticipation there from the refs. So they called it there. So credit to Blackwell. He played really well, you know, and I think somebody that's going to have a bright future here in the Big Ten.
Yeah, agreed. And he's a guy that Purdue fans can resonate a little bit with, that Blackwell is ranked like 212th coming into the season for his freshman class. I don't know how he was ranked that. That was, even when I watched him on the summer, I was just like, that dude's better than that. And he's been a big part, especially, you know, we'll see what happens with AJ Storr during the offseason. Blackwell's going to have a big role, and he was a big part. You know, he attacked Loyer for a bit. They switched Jones onto him. He went at Jones. It didn't really matter. Also, just some good action from Wisconsin. Kind of, you know, they love running their pin downs and stuff like that, just trying to get guys curling. And Blackwell took advantage of that a lot. And really, really good effort from them. But at the end of the day, they don't have Zack Edey, and that's a pretty big difference maker.
Sounds like a personal problem to me. So yeah, Purdue ends up shooting 49% from the field, Wisconsin on 44%. And then, as you mentioned, 21% from 3. Purdue shoots 50% from 3 on 9 of 18. Purdue shoots 17 to 21 from the free throw line, 14 turnovers for Purdue. Doesn't seem, you don't seem to notice that stat when you win by 16, but that certainly is a little higher than I think Matt Painter is comfortable with in that regard. So just kind of browsing through some of these other statistics, Wisconsin outscores Purdue points in the paint, 34-30. So that's a surprise there. 21 assists on 21 made field goals for Purdue. Just really showing how they're sharing the basketball. So those are some of the stats that I'm looking at there, and they led for 39 minutes of this game. So I don't think they ever trailed. So maybe they did at the very beginning. I can't remember. I don't think they did, though.
I think Wisconsin was up like 2-0.
2-0. Okay. Yeah. So anything for you that stood out as far as team statistics?
Yeah, I mean, the turnovers, the 14-8, and a large part of Wisconsin's run was coming off a Purdue's turnover. You had Braden Smith throw, he was expecting Edey on the roll. Edey gets caught up, basically like, not tackled, but he stopped on the roll. So that's a turnover leading to Puckett's. There's like a turnover, I believe, on like 2 post entry passes in that same time frame. And that was a large part of Wisconsin just being able to get out and go from there. Because when Purdue was shooting the ball, they were scoring, 50% from 3, 81% from the line. If they were missing, they were getting on the offensive glass, and what they finished 10 offensive rebounds. Like, they were doing everything there well. It was just turnovers. Obviously, Wisconsin 3-point shooting also stands out, and just shooting in general. Wisconsin shot poorly from this game, but I think it's probably the turnovers is just the big one. Because then you also look like when turnovers weren't happening, you said 21 assists on 26 made field goals. Like,
right,
the ball was absolutely moving. They had to take care of the ball, and Painter's emphasized it. It feels like every single time he's at an interview, it's if Purdue takes care of the ball, they're going to win the game. They were able to overcome it this time, which is a good sign for March that they can't overcome it if it comes down to it, but they can put teams away if they just take care of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. Wisconsin, obviously getting real chippy as the crowd goes wild here at Mackey Arena. I think that signals that Zack Edey might be coming out. A lot of fans, few hundred fans still here. I mean, the game ended at what, 3:30? It's one, right?
3:15, yeah.
3:15. Right. 3 o'clock, the game ended. We're an hour and a half, almost 2 hours after that the game ended. Obviously, there was a senior day celebration, but here comes Zach to one last time do the go around for every fan that's waiting here at Mackey Arena. Special player, ladies and gentlemen, really special player. Some special moments after the game, with him and his mom addressing the crowd. They unveiled the number 15 hanging in the rafters right next to Jaden Ivey, who Matt Painter reminded everyone that he was a part of this same class here. So, a pretty special class overall when you consider Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, who was the first top 50 out-of-state recruit, Ethan Morton, here to Purdue. And, Mason Gillis being the glue guy. Matt Painter called him the hardest worker, of any player he's ever coached. And then obviously Zack Edey. It goes without saying what he's brought to this program, and here he is, meeting the fans one last time here at Mackey. And it's going to be sad to not see this, going forward, what he's brought to this program for us here on this show to be able to cover his games here the last 4 years has been a lot of fun. It really has. And at times we joked about how you almost take it for granted because how easy he makes it look. And, but now that, this is the end, this is the last time he'll be in Mackey Arena as a player. You kind of understand to not take this moment for granted and just kind of soak this in. Soon to be 2-time National Player of the Year. And here 2 hours after the game, I can remember, when Sasha Stefanovic, who I've said many times here on the show is a good friend, on his senior day, he had like 200 of his family members here. Sasha's got a big loving family, but like after the game was over, they had a dinner reservation at a restaurant for his whole family and friends. Like Zach still has, I'm sure, some kind of party to get to tonight with his family from everybody that came from Canada and out of town to visit him. And yet here he is. And this is going to take him a solid hour and a half to finish with all these fans here, but he doesn't leave. And that's what he, I think it just shows how much he emphasizes, doing right by the fans that adore him and just being the good guy that he is. He was raised well. So props to his mom and dad for the job they did raising, Zach, because he's he's a good man, aside from a good basketball player. So it's just it's something it's a sight to behold.
And I think we all, as fans, we understand what Zack Edey is and who he is. Like this, correct me if I'm wrong. This is there's COVID, I guess, the 1 year. So this is my 5th senior day that I've been at, and I don't remember the stands being even close to this full. It was 90. There was maybe like 5% of fans that left, maybe. It was fully packed. I don't remember that ever for a senior night. For like the post game ceremony is what I'm talking about. Like it was as if the game was about to start. That's how many people were here. And I just a recognition of how good this team is, a recognition obviously of how good Edey is, how important he is to this program. Like this is regardless of what happens in March, right? And there's a lot to happen in March, and we're hoping we still have a lot more post-game shows to get to this season. Regardless of all of that, the impact Zack Edey will have had on this program, we're going to see for many, many years. He's going to be a 2-time National Player of the Year at Purdue, came back after winning it last year to run it back once more. Obviously, a Final Four plus run would be the cherry on top, and just cements his legacy. But just in terms of recruiting and just taking Purdue to that next level of, Purdue's never going to have the funding of some of the blue bloods, right? Or the recruit, Painter's not going to be Coach Calipari and go get whatever 5-star he wants and work with that. Painter's going to get his guys, but now it's just even more just taking Purdue to that next level, expanding recruiting pools, expanding just everything. And it's just really cool to see. And then on top of that, Edey's the type of guy that for every single home game will stay after and sign for everybody. So it's crazy. It's surreal just to have watched him play.
And I think the other thing too is he's the embodiment of the Matt Painter system and program that they've grown here with Purdue men's basketball, because he wasn't a high recruit. That's the other part of this story. Like we have Kanan, we as in the Boilers have Kanan Catchings coming in next year. He's one of the top recruits in Purdue history to come in.
Yep.
If he ends up having a great year or two here at Purdue, that's great for the program, but he was somebody that was highly recruited. Zach comes from nothing when it comes to being a recruit. He's like the 321st ranked players,
or something, right?
400th, 400. I'm giving him too much there. He was one of the lowest ranked recruits to come out, and that's what I've tried to explain to people when I talked about how much they've exceeded expectations last few years. Because people are like, how could you say they've exceeded expectations? They were the best team in the country and they lost in March in the first round. Yeah, but the players on this team, they were not expected to be National Player of the Year. They were not, when this class came in, everybody had high hopes they'd be competitive, maybe win a Big Ten regular season championship. But to be a team that, is the best in the country for a 4-year span, that, as Matt Painter said, every single school that beat them stormed the court on. They literally, this class with Zack Edey and Mason Gillis and Ethan Morton, this is something I brought up many times over the last few years, is every loss they've ever had in their career in the regular season, they've had the court stormed on them. That sucks in the moment, but when you look at it, you stand back and do the bird's eye view of that statement, that just goes to show you how much the program is flipped from, what it was to what it is. And so, it's and like I said, he's the embodiment of the Purdue program, a guy that was ranked in the 400s to now being the 2-time National Player of the Year. And that is a credit to Zach's hard work, and that's a credit to Matt Painter, who identifies talent and understands that it isn't about just the ranking, and sees the player and the person that fits for the program, and then they develop the player into what each guy has become. And Zach being the extreme of that example to end up being the best player in the country 2 years in a row.
And I think it's embodied with today's game. 25 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and this wasn't even close to Zack Edey's best game this season. this was a game where he really, really had to grind it out. We already talked about the physicality and all that. Still gets still puts up great numbers. It's just who he is at this point. Like it's hard to talk about how good he is because we've said it all season, but it's just like, what is there to say other than he's going to just work harder than you. He's going to be better, and he's just going to get his. Like today, he just absolutely grinded for his. He in a game where, in terms of external factors of like Big Ten seeding and March Madness, none of that mattered for this game. The only thing that mattered was Purdue getting a win for their seniors on senior night, and Zack Edey was going to make that happen any way possible. And then it's just what with his dominance, it sets up everybody else. It's it just, as much as we do take it for granted, it cannot be taken for granted what he does.
Well, and I think it's appropriate. I know we started to get into team stats and stuff, but then just to continue to highlight Zach, I mean, because as we go forward, it's a lot of tournament talk. We really are going to be breaking down the games. Today's game, outside of the chippiness and potential injuries that almost happened, I mean, some of the stats and why they won or how they won don't really mean as much as when we talk about Zack Edey's, presence and impact on this program. I think Derek Mulliken in the chat saying he's got 41 points to pass Rick Mount all time. Joe, you're the stats guy, so you'll have to double check that. I know some people are saying some different things in the chat, but regardless, he's 41 points away. So two games, if they get to the second game of the Big Ten tournament, he should be able to pass it then. And so, we'll get back to some of the stuff that's happened in this game, because I certainly want to talk about Fletcher Loyer and his resurgence here these last couple games, because that's huge for tournament time, and talk a little bit about Lance Jones. But we'll just continue. How many times have we on this show talked about everybody but Zack Edey? To talk today a lot about, one of the greatest players in Purdue men's basketball program history. It's definitely appropriate. So I'm sure we'll have another Zack Edey tangent before the show ends. But let's continue to get into some of the other parts of this game. I don't know. Do you want to just go right to Fletcher, or do you want to start some more?
Let's go to Fletch. 15 points, 5 of 5 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Did have 2 turnovers. And first things first, it is great that Fletch is getting back on the shooting streak. And I'll pull it up now, but he's I should have had this already pulled up. But he's just been shooting really well the past few games, and obviously that was the big thing. Is when he wasn't shooting, it's like, what exactly is he providing out there? Now he's 8 of his last 11 from 3 in the past 3 games. Providing there, and he's also averaging 4 assists per game in the last 3, and he's had 5 assists in 2 of the past 5 games, 4 in another, 3 in another, and 0. Like, he's also just making the right plays with passing. I want to repeat this because I brought it up last game. Fletcher Loyer, and after, especially, it might have improved to number 1 after this, but Fletcher Loyer is shooting better than every other player in the Big Ten from 3 in Big Ten play. He is 48.5%. He is shooting a better 3-point percentage than every single person in the Big Ten that qualifies. It's like, I don't know if it's like 2 threes a game or something like that, but he is shooting better, even with that huge slump, right? And we all know that huge slump was there where nothing could go. He was kind of getting burnt defensively. He is still shooting better than anybody in the Big Ten, in Big Ten play. On top of that, he is now getting back to providing some of the auxiliary plays that when he was in the slump, I kind of harped about. Is like, I understand that he's playing poorly right now. He has the capability of, compared to some of the other guys, of making just the right pass and being in the right spot defensively. And it wasn't a perfect game by any means from Loyer. He had a couple turnovers, and there was definitely a few times he got absolutely burnt defensively. I'm not saying that, but it's just good to see him back where he is, because there is going to be some game in March. Maybe it's late. Hopefully it's an Elite 8 Final Four type where it's like Fletch just has to get going. And Purdue needs him. I've said it on the kind of at the top of the show, is Purdue needs Smith, Edey plus 1 perimeter guy shooting well. Fletch can absolutely be that guy. Be that guy, and we're just hoping that he continues it throughout the rest of the March and a little bit of April.
Yep, and Bitcoin is Freedom, a guy who's tuned into our shows for a long time here and is a rabble rouser. And obviously he's a big fan of Kraig's too. I think when he ranks it, it's Kraig, then Joe, and then me way down here. And he puts in the chat, I would like to formally apologize to Fletcher Loyer, which is big for big. Anybody that knows Bitcoin in our chat, he doesn't dish out apologies very easily. 15 points in 3 straight March games, 50% or better shooting in all 3, including 5 of 5 today. And most importantly, he's way better defensively.
Yeah, and he has been. And I think this is my theme for the most part, and I think it happened again today. There's going to be a few plays he just gets absolutely cooked, and he's going to let up a bucket defensively. It's going to happen. I think for the majority of the rest of the plays, though, he's going to be in the right spot and doing what is needed of him, and that's kind of all. That's what Purdue needs. They just need him to do what is needed defensively, be in the right spot, and you figure it out from there. And if he's getting absolutely torched, you can bring in Edey. Maybe Colvin can come in off the bench or Morton, right? And just give you kind of that type, especially on the defensive end with Edey and Morton. But yeah, I think he's been much better for the most part, just being in the right spot. That's the big thing with him is, can he just kind of keep the ball in front, make the right rotations? There's a couple times he didn't. It allows Wisconsin buckets, but when you get that combined with his shooting, that is where Fletcher Loyer is really going to thrive. Yeah. Also, just kind of quickly looking, and obviously it's because he didn't play well, but from January 31st to February 25th, Fletch did not play more than 29 minutes the entire time. He has now played 32 plus in the past 3. And obviously, if you're making shots, you're going to play more and all that, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like I said on the last post game where I was talking about his role being more limited, and that's what's kind of been the difference between last year and this year. Then you look down on this the stat sheet for the Illinois game. I think he had 34 minutes, and I was like, well, no, that's after the post game was over, I was like, well, I think I kind of said that one wrong because that's the role he did play last year, is around 34 minutes. So to your point, all of a sudden now he's had an uptick on minutes, and that's Painter identifying the hot hand, right? I mean, yep. So he's got some different options between, Camden Edey and Fletch and Lance Jones and Ethan Morton if you need a defensive guy to come in there and shut somebody down. So, it's always kind of game contingent, personnel contingent. But now all of a sudden Fletch has caught fire at a great time. No matter what he's shooting, he's always going to keep defenses on their toes, and they're going to have to account for him, and he provides spacing because of that.
Yeah. And I know we want to bring Kraig on really quick because he's here, but like that is something that can't be overlooked, and you hear it in the NBA a lot too, is like, yes, it is great to make 3-point shots. Sometimes making 3-point shots isn't enough. Like, you could look at TKR. I don't know what he's shooting at this point in the year, but for some point he was 50% or 40% on the year. He's 38.1%, right? Nobody respects TKR as a shooter, though. And that's obviously a bad example. They don't play the same position, but like Loyer gets respect more than anything. Painter said it. Teams game plan to take away Fletch. Yep. And even if he isn't scoring in some capacity, as of right now, that still adds something, especially when Purdue does such a good job with spacing, but it is very, it's a very like thin edge of just like, your spacing has to be exactly right. You can't really have anybody out of position. And Fletch does provide that.
100%. Welcome, Kraig. How are you?
Not too bad.
Where do you want to start? You want to give your instant reaction to the game first? You want to talk about what you heard from Matt Painter and the players? I'll let you decide. You can give us the whole synopsis of your day.
There wasn't a whole lot in the press conference really about the game. Most of it was focused just kind of on the graduating seniors, what they've meant to the program and that type of thing. And obviously, just a lot of focus on that today in particular. So not a lot of nuggets necessarily about this individual game. For me personally, the thing that I really liked about today is Wisconsin came in here with the idea that they wanted to just out physical Purdue. And, I was at the Wisconsin-Purdue game at Wisconsin live watching that. And Wisconsin was way more physical with Purdue today, I thought. And kind of looked to me like it was a mindset of, look, we're going to be as physical as we can until the refs take us out of that style of play. Because there was a lot of stuff today that could have been called. that gets called in a lot of other games. It wasn't called today, and I'm not complaining about the refs. I'm just saying that's kind of how they let them play on both ends of the court today. And there was chippiness on dead balls. Joe and I were talking about that during the game. Like, even during dead balls, as guys were walking back, Wisconsin was kind of putting an elbow, putting a shoulder into people, and wanted to try to kind of enforce their will that way. And I like the fact that Purdue had to play against that style today and didn't let it get to them, and still figured out a way to go ahead and win this game, because there's going to be some games in the tournament that are that way. We've seen it. Where teams get away with more physicality than maybe what Purdue's used to. I thought that happened a little bit today, and Purdue still figured out a way to just stay focused on the prize at hand and figure out a way to pull this game out in the end.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We talked about that. And somebody else, in the chat, David Dillman, saying that they have this won't back down factor to them this year as we continue to try to compare and contrast this year to last year. I even went as far to say there were points in this game, and I was down on the floor for some of it, so I could hear some of the back and forth going on between Zach and Tyler Wall specifically. And I mentioned I've got a lot of respect for Tyler Wall's game. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the country. Honestly, I believe that he has no skill about him whatsoever. He's got like good footwork. He's just somebody that just finds a way to get his buckets, and he does a pretty good job against Zach these last two games here this season. But I went as far to say, Kraig, there was a few points where I would have said that even beyond chippy, it was dirty. There was dirtiness attached to this game. And there was a few times where I think if Purdue wasn't playing, it didn't have as much on the line, that it might have got uglier, because there was a few times where, guys on Purdue's team, Braden's telling Zach, hey, just let it go, almost like a bigger fish to fry kind of mentality. And I was saying to Joe that I honestly felt like Wisconsin was kind of lucky that Purdue's got bigger fish to fry, because I thought there was a few points in the game where I think things would have probably got even uglier. But Purdue just kind of had to sit there and take it. And to your point, they stood there and absorbed all the, chippiness, dirtiness, and took it right back to them. It wasn't the prettiest game for Purdue offensively, but they got in the mud and got the job done. So, I agree with you. When you get to the tournament, Zach even got in a little bit of foul trouble too. So these are different things when you talk about just one last simulation before tournament time to be ready for this stuff here in March. Not the worst thing. And we all were like, hey, let's stop the game at halftime when Braden and Zach both hit the deck, and it got scary for everybody. But at the same time, you knew Purdue was playing for something with trying to stay undefeated at home for the season. I know Lance Jones mentioned that in the players press conference. So, they got that final box checked here for the regular season.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Lance did say, somebody said, how did you get up for this game with Wisconsin having a lot more to play for in terms of potential tournament seeding and that type of thing, and basically all the regular season awards being wrapped up, and having the 1 seed in the Big Ten tourney locked up. And even if they would have lost today, they still would have been a 1 seed in the Midwest in the NCAA tournament too. Yeah. And he just said, in the question, he said, even though you'd been undefeated at home, and Lance said, well, you said it right there, we're undefeated at home and we wanted to finish that way. Like that's what got us up for this game. So obviously they take a lot of pride in that. You could tell this moment really meant a lot to Lance, both just in his senior night speech and then in the press conference. Everything that he's gone through with his dad, losing his dad before he really got to see Lance, start his Purdue journey. The way that the fans have embraced him and the way that Lance has embraced the fans here. This was a big emotional night for him.
Yeah, 100%. He had the picture of his dad, the mural of his dad that he brought out for, when they did their, senior day celebration and came out and had their speech, and he lost his father right before the season started. So this was definitely an emotional time for him and his family. Lance is all class. He's always got a beaming smile on his face. And, he brought the energy once again here today during the game and then after during the celebration. And he said, like, hey, we ain't done yet, so let's do the damn thing. We got more to do. And so I love that mentality. Obviously, I think they all understand that, but to really speak it into existence, I think was fun to hear. So it'll be fun to watch this team play here in tournament time. So anything else you got from the press conferences? I know you said there wasn't too much. Matt Payne or anything talking about
yeah, I mean, I'll have some clips up. I mean, obviously, Painter just talked about, how important Zach has been and the legacy that he leaves here, just how much he's worked and changed and grown his game over those 4 years, and just talked about his competitive spirit is kind of being the one thing about Zach that has really allowed him to do that he's just an extremely competitive guy that shows up every single night, that he's never taken a game off in his entire career here. Doesn't mean he hasn't had bad games, but he shows up and he's ultra competitive every single game. I guess the only other thing, it's a little bit cliche, but I think when you talk about this team, it rings really true. Gillis talked about, that it wasn't so much all the wins, that, the winning matters and everything else, but just how close this team is all the way through, that they all hang out and spend time together off the court, that's
Yep.
Isn't, a bunch of guys looking for an NBA contract necessarily, that the relationships that he has with all the guys here is one of the things that's been the best about his 4 years here, and that he's going to miss the most, just because they truly are that close-knit, tight-knit group of guys. And to me, that speaks a lot of volumes about what they can do in March, because you're not going to have anybody out there who's just, trying to hunt their own points. Everybody here just cares about winning, and that's it.
Yeah, 100%. You can just tell. You can tell how much this team cares about each other. Just with their, like, everybody says it. Every team is, that's what you're supposed to say. But it just seems different with this group. That they're really there for each other. They're really just care about each other as people, as basketball players, as teammates, and I think it just shows on the court too. It really doesn't seem like anybody has any issue with like a role or anything like that. Obviously, these guys are ultra competitive, so they want to play the most minutes possible. But at the end of the day, they know what's best for the team. Even just like, and it starts with Zack Edey, and it goes both ways. It starts with Zack Edey, that he's the best player in the country, but he doesn't act like it. But it also is like the rest of the guys have to they know that they're playing with the best player in the country. There's still just stuff that comes with it. And I don't, Edey's not, it's been said so many times, Edey's not a guy that's taken advantage, quote unquote, like taken advantage and been all about him or anything. But at the same time, there's just, there's more interviews, there's more trophy ceremonies, there's all more attention, like all of that. And it doesn't seem like it affects the rest of the guys whatsoever. Helps that Zach is who he is, but it does go both ways with that, I think.
Yep. We got Mr. Duncan Kesar saying boiler up from Crown Point, my hometown. Go Bears as well. Bear down to you. I know the Bears just signed a safety here during the game. So some action going on. And Crown Point won the regional championship over Warsaw last night. I was in attendance for that. So they move on to semi-state, first regional championship since 1998. Lynn Ream saying go Bears and Cubs. So we appreciate you guys hanging out. Please hit that like button while you guys are here, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I know some people watch from Twitter or Facebook or Twitch, but we stream live on YouTube, and we always appreciate when people kind of go over there and subscribe to the channel. The main channel is called Brags in the Stands. That's the origination of this whole inception of Boilers in the Stands, and you'll find the whole library of all our different shows and interviews that we've done and will continue to do as we roll into March. So please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, helps us out in a big way with the algorithm and sending us to fans that may haven't found us yet, that I'm sure are going to find us here as March rolls on. Why don't we take one more time out? Unless you got something, Joe, we'll take one more time out, and then we'll move into the final segment of our show here and let you and Kraig kind of kick it around here. Maybe I'll go down and take a couple pictures of Zach with the fans before this whole thing wraps up.
Would you like to do this, Kraig, or me?
I got it.
All right.
You got the graphic?
Yep.
All right. Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident, BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate the process. Give BJ a call, 317-345-4600, for all your real estate needs in the Lafayette area. I've said it many times before, but want to definitely thank them for their sponsorship throughout this year. They've been one of our long-running sponsors throughout this specific year of shows. And like I said, I've known BJ for a long time, and definitely trust him in any of those processes. So give them a call for your real estate needs.
Yeah, appreciate them sponsoring us this whole season, working with us. Hopefully there is still I think 9 more post-game shows would be ideal, right? 6 + 3 is 9. Yep. So Braggs is out there doing his thing. What?
I could live with 7 or 8 though, depending on where the 2 less come from.
Yeah, true. But I mean, in an ideal world, it's not. Like I would rather win the Big Ten tournament than not. If it doesn't affect March. But let's dive a little bit more into this game, and we don't have to go too much longer. I know we'll have a bracketology show with Tonsoni on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then it's Big Ten tournament starts. Purdue will be Friday. Because Ohio State hung on to win. Ohio State, I believe, is locked into the 9 seed now, and so the 8 seed will be, I believe, the winner of this Michigan State Indiana game, and so. If don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty confident that Purdue will play in their first game either Michigan State, IU, or Ohio State, just depending on what happens. IU's up 24-10 on MSU right now. But yeah, I know. I flipped on the game and I was just like, what? But so that'll happen. Ohio State obviously is one of the hotter teams in the Big Ten right now, and they're a team that has beat Purdue this year. So we'll see what happens there. But we can talk a little bit more about this game. We talked a little bit about Fletch and just kind of what he's done. We went in depth on Edey, of just really Edey's magnitude as a program enhancer and everything like that. Is there anything else that kind of stands out to you, though, that aside from maybe Fletch and Edey, that, Fletch, Edey, and the physicality were like the 3 big things we've hit on this game? Is there anything else that kind of stands out to you, do you think?
I think really what stands out is just that there were contributions from multiple areas. Obviously, Braden didn't have a great shooting game, but he almost ends up with a triple-double. I think he's 2 rebounds short of a triple-double. The percentage and efficiency of the shooting numbers themselves weren't necessarily great today, but still played a really good game just in terms of getting everybody else involved. But, I thought you just had small contributions from a lot of different places, right? I mean, obviously Fletcher gives you 15 on perfect shooting from the field, but TKR gets you 2 baskets. Gillis comes in and hits 2 threes. Caleb hits that 3 from the corner that was absolutely huge at that specific time, and then also gets you some 2 points in the paint as well. Lance had those early 6, and then he has that big drive to the rim where he absorbs the contact and still hits that little 2-foot shot, and then comes back and hits a 3 at the end, which I thought that was so special and important because he hadn't really done anything since that first stretch. And then the fans had that one more time to kind of applaud him and thank him for what he's done in his year here at Purdue. So really, I thought outside of Zach and then Fletcher obviously being perfect from the field, that it was just small contributions from everywhere. And we've seen time and time again with this team that Zach's going to get you his 20 to 30 and his 10 to 20 rebounds, right? Braden's usually going to show up and get you double digits. And if not, he's going to impact the game in a lot of different ways. And then it's just like, okay, we've got this bevy of 5 or 6 other guys. Who's going to be the guy to get points tonight? Tonight, that was Loyer, and then a handful from a whole bunch of other guys. Now, I guess Lance does end up with 13 and shoots 60% from 3 on the night and 4 or 7 in the end. Like, you look at the numbers at the end, you're like, man, I felt like he had a really bad stretch. But he just didn't take shots there after that air ball from 3 for a while. So I just thought it was a total team effort. And like I said, Wisconsin always muddies things up anytime we play them. And it just becomes a slogfest. It becomes a slow game. And you have to just be able to stay focused and not get caught up in all of that, because that's what Wisconsin wants to do. They want you to kind of get bored with it and get tired of all the physicality and everything else and the slow pace. And I thought Purdue just did a really nice job of saying, look, this is who Wisconsin is. We're going to fight through it. We're going to get enough points from from our supporting cast and figure out a way to win this game. And it's another game where it felt somewhat close while also not really ever feeling close.
Yep. Yeah, and we talked about it earlier. It's like this game got down to 3 in the second half. Purdue was up 16 with 2 minutes left. They regained control and they dominated still. And some late game antics cut the lead a little bit for Wisconsin. But
what a joke that was. Like, I'm sorry, but Purdue runs the shot clock out, and not only do you come down and fire up a 3, but then you steal the ball on the inbounds pass after that. Like, I'm sorry, man. That's Bush League.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The 3 was fine. The store steal was unnecessary because Purdue was just going to run out the clock at that point. But that's kind of where Wisconsin's at right now. They're 3-8 in their last 11 after being considered good for a while during the season. But there's still, this was I think for the most part, outside of there was like 2 specific things that Wisconsin did really, really well against Purdue. And that was they got Wall moving with space. And so Edey's on Wall, right? Because Wall can't shoot. And so Edey's just kind of one-man zoning. But Wall's so crafty and just such weird angles that he can get to. He would, a lot of times, they would start having him just catch, it's called a stampede dribble. And so it's just where you're already running, and then as you catch, you just dribble. So he's already going full speed as he catches the ball, going downhill at Edey. I thought Wisconsin did a really good job of that. The more pure post-ups, I thought Edey and Purdue did a pretty good job on, but that, and then just, they're just the pin down action, especially Loyer. That is one area where Loyer really struggles, is just getting around screens. Even most of Purdue perimeter players, to be honest, pin down actions for Blackwell, for Klesmit, who Klesmit didn't have a great game, but Blackwell especially just curling or getting a 3. But aside from that, Purdue shut off basically everything else. It felt like to me, I would say. And there's a couple of moments where Wisconsin got a couple of rebounds and stuff, but for the most part, Purdue, I thought did a good job controlling that end. This was about average defensive performance, I think, for them. And when you get that and slightly above average, maybe or average offense performance, if Purdue has an average game against a large chunk of teams in the country, they're going to win. That's just where they're at this year, I think, right? I don't know what the exact cutoff would be in my head, but if they're average on both ends, it's going to be probably still pretty good results in general.
Yeah, they don't, and it's nice to have that cushion this year. That hasn't obviously always been there, but it just feels like this team doesn't have to have everybody play a great game to win, even against good teams. We've seen, games against top 25 teams where one of either Fletch, Lance, or Braden doesn't have a good shooting night, and it hasn't really mattered. As long as you get 2 of those 3 to step up along with Zach, and everybody else plays their role really well, which this team buys into extremely well, there's a good chance Purdue's still going to pull it out. I think obviously they'll run into some teams eventually where they're going to need everybody to step up, but that may be the Elite 8 before that happens in my mind, in terms of being able to just play a good game and still go ahead and pull it out. And, I thought the other thing Wisconsin did a really nice job of, and Chucky Hepburn is a great defender. Blackwell is a great on-ball defender. McGee is a really nice on-ball defender. And they did a really nice job of just making things difficult, especially in that first chunk of the first half for Braden. They made it really difficult for entry passers. And then I thought a lot more than at Wisconsin itself. And Guard said in the post game that it depended on whether Gillis was in or whether TKR was in terms of how they were going to attack Edey after he caught the pass, the entry pass. But I thought they dug down and doubled a lot faster and a lot harder than what they did at Wisconsin, and had really active hands against Zach. So they end up forcing 14 turnovers and getting 17 points off of those turnovers. So I thought they did a really nice job of that. And obviously we'd like to see that cut down. In my head, the magic number is a dozen. If Purdue can keep the turnovers around 12 or less, generally they're going to be just fine. And then they also got 10 offensive rebounds. And I know what they said about this really meaning something to them in terms of wanting to stay undefeated at Mackey. I thought in the first half a little bit and Painter actually said in the post-game press conference that he felt like there was a stretch where Purdue didn't match their physicality rebounding. It didn't look early in the game like maybe Purdue had just quite as much energy rebounding early on, and that gave Wisconsin some second chance points. I think they finished with 14 or 15 second chance points today. So, 32 or however many points it was out of their 70 come either off of turnovers or off of second chance points today.
Yep. Yeah. 15 second chance points, 14 off of turnovers. So that's 29. Yeah. That's a big chunk. Yeah. And it is good to see Purdue be able to overcome it. It is bad to see Purdue actually have to overcome it though in the game. But they did. They get the win. Somebody said in the chats, where is it? There it is, from Isaac and Jenna Blue. Is Zach still signing? Think he'll set a new record there too? He is. There's a little bit, I don't know. I know this isn't the most clear, but a little bit of a gathering still. He kind of has this section over here because like all of this was kind of full before. Has that section. He is still signing everything. Obviously we can't say enough what Zack Edey means, not only to just this team specifically, but the program in general. And this is one of the ways that he does it. So we've been going about an hour 15. We do appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm kind of good, unless you have other stuff you wanted to hit on.
Have we done our game balls yet?
We have not.
I'll let you go first. Oh, dang it. All right, I'll go first.
I can go first. I can go first.
Game ball's got to go to Zach tonight, right?
Yeah.
Like to play through all the force and physicality. I mean, he was getting hacked out there. A lot of denied, absorbing a lot of physicality. There was a couple of times, honestly, where I thought he was going to turn around and lose it, and I thought some other people had to calm him down. But for him to play through that, finish 50% from the field, 25 points, 11 of 14 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, 3 assists. I think he had 3 or 4 turnovers, but outside of that, tonight was a really, really nice way for him to finish up his time here. I think he's down to like 43 points or something. 41 to get the all-time scoring record. So absolute beast of a performance by Zach. Yet again, just another double-double. So I'm going to give the game ball to him. You got to pick somebody else. For anybody who hasn't watched us do this, we don't all pick the same person. I think I know where you're going, but I want to hear it.
I'm gonna give it to Fletch because just that efficiency is pretty big. But man, that is like, you really got contributions like from Brain, from Lance, even sneakily versus 3 was gigantic. That corner 3 was huge in that moment. But I'm gonna go Fletch. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Just doing the little things in addition to making the shots. He wasn't forcing, which is a big thing. I think at times he'll, especially on his drives and stuff, seems like he almost will force shots. None of that today. Making the extra pass, getting the ball to Edey, and then knocking down shots. Like, this is the exact Fletcher Loyer that Purdue needs going into March, and he's shown up these past few games, and we're going to hope to see it continue. So, good call on the game balls. I did forget about those as well. We do have a few chats we'll kind of go through. This from Jack Horton. Thanks to Braggs, Kraig, and Joe for doing a great job. Been a hell of a ride. Let's keep this train rolling all the way to Phoenix. We do appreciate that. We genuinely appreciate everybody tuning in. I love doing these shows. It's been a blast being able to do them. So we appreciate that. There's another one from Dead Hoosier. I'd like to take this time on Senior Day to recognize Boilers in the Stands. Best wrap-up show in college b-ball. Appreciate that as always.
Did you and Greg talk about your moment today?
Oh no, we didn't. There might be a comment starred. No, there isn't.
Yeah. So Joe, we're wrapping up, Greg. So no long Midwest goodbye. But
Bill.
Joe had his first "Can I get a picture with you guys" moment today. So so we were walking down, and somebody said, "Are you guys Boilers in the Stands? Can I grab a picture with you?" And that was I said, "Joe, was that your first can we grab a picture moment with you?" So he's big time. That's not appropriate on the air, but you got your first of those.
He's big time.
I did not think you were going there, Kraig. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
I figured we were bringing up some musician, but
oh no, I didn't. You already got ridiculed enough on Twitter for that.
Yeah, hey, we all know for Joe, his star is one day going to outshine what he does here at Boilers in the Stands. And just like Zack Edey, when he first came into the Purdue program, what's this guy going to do? And then before you know it, he's 2-time National Player of the Year. One day we'll see Joe breaking down the X's and O's, which he didn't do today, but we're not going to hold it against him. He's got the board. That's okay. But one day we're going to see you breaking down the X's and O's on ESPN. I have no doubt, or on the Big Ten Network.
That's
or on
fine,
CBS.
but he still has to show up for the Boilers in the Stand shows.
Yeah, there's no question. He's not going anywhere. So
all right. We want to work through the rest of these comments, Joe?
Yep.
Work through the rest of these comments.
Christopher Tice, Caleb first for a bullseye. We kind of said that was a pretty big moment right there. So yes. Hammer Down Huddle said, was Klein there juggling beers today? I didn't see Klein. If he was here, I missed that one, but I would assume they would have thrown him up on the Jumbotron. Aiden O'Connell was here.
Yeah. Darius Rucker, Aiden O'Connell. I think those were the two main ones.
Yep. Brian Bennett, talk about no charging calls until the third time Blackwell attacked Loyer with his chest in one possession. All of a sudden, the refs call a charge. Weird game with the whistle. It was a weird game on both sides. Like, I don't think this was just like a purely everything was pro Wisconsin or anything. Like, Purdue got away with some stuff too. Just a weird, physical, tacky game, and that's how it goes sometimes. Bill says, I hate to say it, but Houston definitely deserves the number 1 overall seed. To me, to me, it doesn't matter because it's not going to affect regionality. Like, I don't care if Purdue's the number 1, 2, or 3 seed with Houston and UConn, as those are kind of the top 3 clear-cut teams. They're not fighting for the same region, so to me personally, it doesn't matter. I think it would be, Purdue against UConn or Purdue against Houston. Both of those should be pretty fun games if they were to happen. I don't know if you have anything on that.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's up your alley more.
No doubt. I still think the resume is going to say Purdue gets the overall number 1 seed. Just when you look at Quad 1A wins, right? So Quad 1A is a top 15 net team at home, a top 25 net team neutral, a top 50 net team on the road. Nobody even comes close to Purdue in that measure. I think Houston's getting closer. But Purdue still they banked so many high quality wins at the beginning of this season that I don't think the resume is going to hold up relative to anybody else. The last I've checked on Bracket Matrix and some of the other places, Purdue was still the number 1 overall seed. Maybe if they lose in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, that'll change. But otherwise, I think that's where they end up.
Yep. That's totally fair. Couple more comments. We'll get out of here. Derek Mulliken, no more losses this season would be pretty cool. I'm not opposed. I don't know if you're opposed to that, but I'm not opposed to no more losses this season. I think it'd be pretty fun.
I can live with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Now Derek, another Derek Lutchik said, I hate to say it and I don't agree with it, but they'll give National Player of the Year to Connect. No, this has been wrapped up for quite possibly 2 months. It is. I understand where you're coming from as Connect's really gotten this kind of late season really surge and stuff. I would assume voters and Connect's been phenomenal. Connect might be the second best player in the country. I'm not taking away from him, but what Edey's done on a top 3 team in the country, they've beaten Tennessee. Just basically everything kind of just points to Edey to me. I think he should be he probably won't be unanimous because I wouldn't be shocked if like a Tennessee or type voter or something like that votes for Connect, but I would assume he should be unanimous also.
Yeah, and that drumbeat kind of came out of Tennessee. There's not been many people in the national media that have even entertained another name. If you listen to podcasts or stuff that's been written, that type of thing. And Dalton's a great scorer, but that's the only place he impacts the game primarily. They hide him on defense. If you guys watched the game the other night, they hide him on defense. He's not really. I would bet. Would love to look at this, but I bet Zach's assist numbers are higher than Connect's. I'm gonna bet. And from a rebounding standpoint, obviously doesn't impact the game near as much either. So awesome score, awesome player from that level. What's that?
Zack Edey's assist rate 13.8%. Dalton Connect's assist rate 13.2%. An assist rate is just how many when you're on the floor, how many buckets come from an assist from you. So Zack Edey's assist rate is slightly higher.
Tennessee it's either give the ball to Dalton and let Dalton score, or they run offense with their other 4 guys. And it's like this weird disjointed, like either Dalton's going to score or we're going to run our other 4 guys and let Dalton take a play off. So that was going to be my bet. So I just think Zach, impacts the game in so many other different ways that I don't think it's even in conversation. And I think he wins it pretty easily.
Yep, I totally agree. And then last comments from Hammer Down Huddle. 9 more of these shows to go. Let's do it. 9 more. That'd be fun. We'll be, tagging along everywhere that they go. Hopefully making stops in Indy and then Detroit and then Phoenix within the next month. It is time. It is here. Big Ten tournament this week. Like we said, we have a Tuesday. We will be live 7 p.m. Eastern time with Tonsoni from Delphi Bracketology, kind of just going over. Obviously, Purdue's bracketology itself is wrapped up, but we'll still talk about that and some of the potential opponents for them and just the Big Ten a little bit as a whole in terms of bracketology. So appreciate if you guys would tune into that because I think it should be a good show. We're wrapping up here. Want to give a quick shout out back out to our sponsors, Fanbags Cornhole. Always, long time sponsor of the show. Autograph, which you can use this QR code right here. Use it, use code BITS, sign up for free, and then get all your Purdue content in one place, and also get the chance to win some very, very, very cheap tickets, which, in my opinion, is a fun and good thing. Also, BJ Rule, like we said, if you need any real estate needs, go to him for sure. Very friend of Kraig, know him well, and so does a good job there. We appreciate him sponsoring the show as well. So that is going to wrap it up for us. We will be live Tuesday. Braggs is running up here, so he might be getting into shot clock stuff. I don't know. Maybe.
What is this? Is this
we
a
were literally
goodbye?
We were literally we're signing off.
Huh?
We were signing off, and he saw you
Midwestern
running off.
goodbye.
I already
You said
shouted
you
out
were
our
gonna go,
sponsors.
but yeah, here we are.
We're actually part 1 of the show. Now we're going to start part 2. Do you
Have
have
a
any?
good night. Hey, we will see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're tuned in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and just get excited because this is going to be a fun tournament time here
Sir.
in March. Get
Yeah.
your plane tickets for Arizona. Get your tickets to the Friday and Sunday sessions to Indianapolis. Let's plan a dang meetup in Indianapolis
do
before
it.
one of the games, Friday or Sunday, either before or after the game. Let's plan a meetup. We're planning it right now.
All right, let's do it. I'm down.
So we're not.
Stay tuned for
actually
those
planning
announcements.
it. So,
We'll have a show here on Tuesday with Brian Tonsoni. I'm sure they've already mentioned.
yep.
And we'll talk about the meetup then. I'm out of breath from running up the stairs. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. And always, boiler up. God bless Zack Edey.